Hi, this is the year 2021 in review, and we want to share with you the most important economic news, not only in Puerto Rico but also in the rest of the world, that shapes also Puerto Rico's economic destiny. Don't forget, those of you who like our economic capsules, to subscribe in YouTube under the voice of Heidie Calero, and to give us those thumbs up and like in those economic capsules that you have enjoyed throughout the year in 2021. The first, we are going to do this capsule using the first pages of a local newspaper as well as of the Economist, this important economic review. And the first cover that you see here is Trump's legacy. January 6th of 2021 surprised the world, and we saw it full color, live in real time in our TVs, what was happening in Congress with all this movement of people who, after listening to President Trump's speech saying that he still believed that the elections had been stolen from him, that he had won the presidency, and that he was asking President Biden and Congress not to certify the new President Biden, legally elected by U.S. We saw all these people coming into Congress, and damaging property, people who lost their lives, people who were injured, and this anger that lasted for several hours, damaging property in Congress, but above all, damaging democracy into what is one of the beacons in the world, democracy in the U.S. The legacy of Trump was also positive in terms of we got the COVID-19 vaccines, but again, it's the sweet with the sour in terms of the legacy of Trump. For Puerto Rico, well, President Trump doesn't like too much Puerto Rico, so we saw a slowdown in all these funds that were coming because of Hurricane Maria, which was in 2017. It was slow to come, as well as for the rescue that was given in 2021. In 2020, President Biden has opened up the tab, and Puerto Rico is now receiving, during 2021, more of those funds. The next cover is from the local newspaper, and it says they are defining the agenda for the new economy in the new year. And this is the new governor, Governor Pedro Pierluisi, with accepting his new challenge as governor of Puerto Rico, as well as the legislature, and really rethinking what is going to be the new agenda post COVID-19, after the close down, the shutdown of the economy. How can Puerto Rico open up, especially in tourism? Let's open up the hotels. Let's open up the restaurants. Well, all that was in the agenda. The third cover that we are seeing here is the crisis. Why is it that all these reconstruction funds were not coming? Well, as I mentioned in our first cover, it's because of Puerto Rico's presentation cards. Some of them were not exactly very trustworthy, corruption, bad use of those funds. And we are seeing that with some of the arrests that have been taking place now during December of 2021 with some of the mayors, the mayor of Cataño, the mayor of Guaynabo, and even the vice mayor of Trujillo Alto, and other mayors that may be also being targeted for bad use of those federal funds. So that's part of the slowdown, and of course part of the legacy of President Trump. Our next cover is a demographic change. It's an alarming slowdown in the births in Puerto Rico. I hate to say that it's the same thing in the States. You know, we are witnessing an aging of the population because not enough births are taking place. And in Puerto Rico, it's compounded also by outward migration in search of better economic and job opportunities in the States. So this is an important trend which surprised us since 2010, and the latest figures of 2020 census were given back in August of 2021. So this is an important change because it not only changes consumption patterns, but also how how is Puerto Rico going to pay for all the government services when we have an aging population with a longer life expectancy, I might say. Our next cover is something that is dealing a heavy blow to many consumers and of course to Puerto Rico's competitiveness, and that is the increase in the electricity bill with a new company that is managing the transmission of electricity, that's Luma, and as of March they increased the invoice for the electric utility, and on top of that we are seeing more and more blackouts than we saw before when the government was running the operation. So we are seeing a big challenge because Luma is asking for more increases in the price of the utility, and we are not seeing an improvement yet of the services. Our next cover is Puerto Rico returning back to more strict orders by the governor regarding the use of masks, because it started again increasing after the opening of the economy after COVID-19 shut down in 2020, started to open the economy in January, February, March, but now we are seeing new variants of COVID-19 and new executive orders, not dealing with the shutdowns, but yes, dealing with hours of operation and certainly with masks to take care and increase vaccinations, especially now for all children 5 years and older. Well, our next cover also dealt with another important topic, which is the fiscal plan of the Oversight Board or PROMESA Board. As you know, Puerto Rico is now under the rules since 2016 of a 7-member fiscal oversight board because Puerto Rico said it could not pay its public debt, and one of the tasks of this board is to negotiate the public debt under Title III with the federal government, Judge Taylor Swain. So more austere measures in terms of the fiscal plan, more reforms which Puerto Rico has not yet engaged. Our public debt adjustment process has already cost $1 billion. So we are close to getting that adjustment from Taylor Swain, we hope by early next year. Then because of COVID-19, the shutdown, and we see all these excess demand above the supply chains. We saw disruption in the supply chains, and this is the cover of The Economist with this message in a bottleneck. We saw the supply chains being very vulnerable for many countries, not only Puerto Rico, but also the US and Europe. Semiconductor shortages because world producers are in Taiwan and also in South Korea, and during the shutdown 2020 they also stopped producing or slowed down the production. And now demand exceeds production, and that will impact electric cars and all the gadgets that we use, from phones to electronics. We also have for instance, in all these supply chains, Pfizer has like 5,000 suppliers worldwide. Apple has about 49 countries where they get all these different components. So self-reliance seems to be now a pendulum. Autarky, well, it's not exactly the solution, and the risk is not being as resilient as with these global supply chains. I think America versus China is an important topic for 2022. The next cover is what we experience in Puerto Rico, this challenge in the management of the ports, especially in San Juan with this private company, and the dispute with the private labor union, which really held Puerto Rico hostage in terms of, well, how is this merchandise going to move from the ports? The truckers also asking for more increases, and so really playing havoc in terms of Puerto Rico, which is an island surrounded by water, and merchandise either comes by air or comes through the ports. Our next cover is the shortage economy. As a result of all this excess demand, we are seeing with this cover of The Economist, lack of spending after the financial crisis of 2008 through 2010. Now this surge in demand after the opening up of the economy in 2021. And this gives rise to inflation that we are all witnessing, and also gives way to the shortage economy, which is a function of COVID-19. There are not enough truckers. The ports need to be investing in additional capacity and infrastructure, growth in demand, the demand for electronics, semiconductors, as I said before, the stimulus funds that are coming not only to the States but also injected into Puerto Rico, filling many of the bank deposits, a scramble for extra hands. Well, and then finally, the decarbonization of coal. For Europe, it has meant, especially in the UK, it has meant that they are more vulnerable because they have been moving to renewable energy. They are more vulnerable now to natural gas. We are also seeing another scramble for protectionism if there's been the risk of all these supply chains. Well, the pendulum may be swinging towards protectionism. All of this shortage economy translates into our next cover, which is the increase in food prices in Puerto Rico, as this cover shows. And also the next one is the price of gasoline at the pump. So Puerto Rico also experiencing, due to the shortage of economy, these two covers that I have shown you depict the increases that we are seeing and really hitting the consumers' purchasing power, and in terms of wages not rising at the same speed to keep up with inflation. Our next cover is, as a result of this shortage economy, as a result of all these changing consumer patterns, as well as changes in labor trends, pajamas following the suits, people working at home, finding that they can have remote control, different work arrangements. Well, this is the cover. It's very hard. We have a shorthand of hands in different areas, be it in construction, in hospitality, in restaurants, in certain services. So it's the same thing in the States. Even though the economy is opening up, there's still a shortage and a great resignation in many people who now have decided, well, let's have a chance at starting our own business. And we have seen this in Puerto Rico as well. This second to last cover, and now what? It tells you, well, we have with the PROMESA board, they have submitted the public debt adjustment to Judge Taylor Swain, and now we are just awaiting to see if that is going to be approved. There are still issues whether Puerto Rico will be able to pay for the debt service that this public debt adjustment is presenting, especially because the economic forecasts of the oversight board are not exactly very kosher, and they depict certainly a slowdown and even negative growth in Puerto Rico. Without growth, how can you pay for that debt? And then now we have COVID-19 new variant Omicron, which is the cover of that of the local newspaper, which is really covering. It has arrived in Puerto Rico, and now it's so transmissible that our positive rate is now 16% as of the date that we are recording this capsule. Well, what is in store is a summary of what the threats that we are seeing, and this cover of The Economist really is so illustrative. With Omicron, you come the China slump, and you have inflation. Those are the three major risks that we are seeing. Tighter restrictions in the rich world can really decelerate economic growth globally. They can raise the inflation rate because of all this excess demand and the problems still with the supply chains, and of course the slowdown in China, the second largest economy in the world, also facing difficulties. Our next capsule, which will be in the new year's, will cover what this cover of The Economist says, the world ahead 2022, when we will share with you the new trends, what is in store as a new year opens up full of hope in 2022. And don't forget to stay safe in all these Christmas and New Year's festivities. Omicron is out there and willing to catch you. So stay safe, and don't forget, the economy is all of us. Thank you.